married for 15 years, my husband tires of me, quarreling and competing, he enrages my stepmother, drives away the concubines, dismisses the legitimate children, and seizes control of the household. Thus, before Xiao Yang's death, he did not want to see me, he only wished to see my younger sister once. I overheard him saying to Yuna, "When I was sulking with you at first and married your sister, I don't regret it. You went into the palace to become a court lady, rose to prominence with ease. And your name spread across the world. If you had married me, you would have been stuck in the back house just like your sister, wasting away your life. Luckily, Yuna, I didn't hold you back. What about me back then? I took the exam with my sister, and my ranking was higher than hers. He knew it. Only because he doesn't love me, so there's no heartbreak." I was furious and laughed instead. "Throw Xiao Yang into the wolf's den, with not a trace of his bones left." Later, my younger sister cried and apologized to me. "It's my momentary willfulness that ruined my elder sister's life, and also caused me to miss my own good fate." Yuna married a general, with long separations and few visits. Before she turned 22, she had become a widow. I only sighed for half an hour. Then alone I bear the doorposts of the Duke's mansion, with descendants who are filial, enjoying wealth and honor, living to a natural death. Then I opened my eyes again and found I had returned to the day I was betrothed to Xiao Yang. At the elegant gathering, I saw Xiao Yang hesitating and not advancing, missing the moment of the previous life when I was forced into marriage. I knew that he had also been reborn. I did a calculation in my heart for him. If he chooses my sister, it would delay her future, and he cannot bear to do that. If he chooses me, the family would be ruined, and at 35 he would wither away in sorrow. If he chooses neither, defying the emperor's decree, then the whole family would be wiped out and banished. The palms and the backs of the hands are all thorns. I couldn't hold back a faint laugh as if hearing my sneer. Xiao Yang suddenly fixed his eyes on me. When enemies meet, they grit their teeth. He seemed to have made a decision and came toward the seats where my sister and I sat. He halted in front of me, frowning with anger in his eyes. "Miss Shen, if today I must marry a daughter from the Shen family, should I marry you or your sister?" Before I could speak, Yuna suddenly stood up beside me. "Young Master Xiao, since it is mutual affection between you and me, it should be me to marry." But Xiao Yang did not answer. Instead he asked me, "Miss Shen, what do you think?" I was startled. At this moment in the previous life, Yuna did not speak like this at that time. The two of us had just passed the imperial examination for female officials. She and Xiao Yang were in harmony and planned to marry, but the Duke's residence has a rule: once married in, she must not leave the main gate, nor step beyond the second gate. She should devote herself to managing the household and educating and guiding her husband and children. "We will never allow Yuna to be out as a maid all day." The two of them argued to the point of breaking up. 3 days ago at the Lantern Festival, Xiao Yang urged again, but Yuna insisted. "I would rather marry a doomed man and live a short life than be stuck in the Lord's inner chambers." Xiao Yang acted on impulse, begging for a royal decree of marriage, granting him to marry the Shen family's legitimate daughter. "In my family there are only me and my sister, 2 legitimate daughters." During the spring gathering of refined company, he walked straight toward us. He asked me the same question. "Ask him who he should marry." I know that although Xiao Yang is asking me, it is really giving Yuna a last chance, but she gritted her teeth and chose the former, the future over marriage. "Very well, Shen Yingyun, as you wish. From now on, I will be your brother-in-law." Xiao Yang immediately produced an imperial edict to press me and said he would marry me. Yuna paused beside me, her eyes reddening. Marriage should be a great joy, yet Xiao Yang clenched his teeth hard. If he's marrying me, he's staring at Yuna the whole time, and now, Yuna has taken the initiative to marry. It seems she has been reborn as well. That's good. The 3 of us can start over again, returning to our respective proper tracks. I calmly ate a crispy peach and grinned back at Xiao Yang. "You two are talking about marriage. What does it have to do with me? Not seeking my parents or a matchmaker, but brother-in-law ends up asking about me instead." Perhaps because of the term brother-in-law, his expression darkened. After a while of staring at me, Xiao Yang took Yuna's hand. "Yinga, marrying you is my lifelong wish. Rest assured, once you enter the door, I will protect you, and I will not allow anyone to torment you." and I will not take a concub mistress in this life. I couldn't help but snort again. In the previous life, I was the one who entered the door. The reason I am trapped idly in the inner residence is because it is all due to his utter neglect from start to finish. In the Dingwa mansion, the old prince minister is obsessed with Taoism and neglects family affairs. The entire household is handed over to the widow Jew, who remarries. Jew is single-minded and domineering. After I entered the mansion, she makes things difficult at every turn and refuses to relinquish power. Seeing Xiao Yang coolly neglect me, the two sons and daughter under his knee also stare covetously. The whole family, displeased with me, intrudes into the courtyard every so often to spy and pry. At first I did not understand why our wells do not clash with his rivers. Why pamper Xiao Yang only to torment his wife, until they began urging Xiao Yang to follow the old duke and practice Taoism, to eat cinnabar pills. I just found out that they don't want Xiao Yang to stay behind, and even want to seize the title, with malicious intentions. So-called pills are mostly refined from cinnabar, sulfur, and saltpeter. I once received guidance from a renowned scholar and know that all these things swallowed are poisons. In my previous life, I clearly told Xiao Yang, all medicinal pills are toxic. Your stepmother is hoping you'll die, so don't take them. He huffed with anger, saying, what good does it do them if I die? I rolled my eyes. Is your brain filled with glue? If you die, the Jew family's son can inherit the family business. Xiao Yang couldn't take it in. It says that Jew family has been in there for 10 years, treating him better than their own son. Tell them, little brothers and sisters, to respect and love him too, even if he inherits the title. He's reluctant to cut off ties with them. When he said this, there were 2 alchemical pills placed in front of him. He refused to drink the health soup I brewed myself, yet he could eat Jew's poison without the slightest scruple. I was so furious that I kicked the table over and knocked all the immortal pills in the room clean away. Seeing that I refused to be governed, Xiao Yang kept staying in the concubine's residence all day, unwilling to look at me even once. They were sent by the Jew family, naturally sowing discord everywhere. They even coaxed him to take many poisonous pills, swearing to me that they would never see or interact again until death. In the quiet afternoon, I sat and pondered carefully. Our marriage was arranged by imperial decree. Even if Xiao Yang dies, I must remain a widow in the Duke's mansion for the rest of my life. Even if you don't consider his life or death, you have to think about my future. So I mixed the Huanhao medicine into the pill, squeezed dry Xiao Yang in one night. He cursed me for lacking shame, and I mocked him for being weak and ineffective. Xiao Yang, you and I are bound by the emperor's betrothal decree. If there's no heir, both families will be unable to account for it. Before I become pregnant, you'd better cooperate a little, otherwise I'll meddle with your meals again. In the heat of summer, I gently fanned myself with a palm leaf fan, smiling warmly as he nearly blew his top. Xiao Yang, perhaps the young master can refrain from eating or drinking, and I, a fierce wife, will fast myself to death. People with immature personalities respond best to strong prodding. Xiao Yang forced himself to go through the routine with me, bracing himself. Afterwards I became pregnant, gave birth to my legitimate grandson, and secured my future. After that, I acted without restraint. Drive away the concubine in my place, seize the head of the household, marry off the legitimate wife far away, send the younger brothers to join the army and march to the battlefield, 1 dead and 1 wounded. The stepmother Jew was so enraged by me that I died of anger. At this time, the Duke's life had just ended, and Xiao Yang's illness had penetrated to his lungs, leaving him bedridden for a long time. The whole household has become my world. When I was 10 years old, there was a severe drought, and I saw starving corpses everywhere. My heart twisted with pain. I decided to become a palace made in the future, to love and protect the people, to contribute a bit to the world's common people. So in a previous life, after I pacified the Duke's mansion, I changed course to fulfill my wish. I pretended that my husband prayed for blessings to request relief for the calamity victims. Either way, it was all the Duke's family's savings, and I didn't feel the least bit distressed. Make winter clothes, run a porridge stall, establish a girls' school and a charity and orphan bureau. The day Xiao Yang died of illness, I received a book of millions of people filled with gratitude. That was the first time I cried since I married Xiao Yang. People in the world say that I am unwilling to let go of my deceased husband. Only my youngest son Zhang, whom I raised with my own hands, knows me best. While he helps wipe away my tears, he soothingly comforts me, grief and sorrow aside. Please, mother, take care of yourself for the sake of the people. Later, Zheng was raised by me into a refined and capable man. With both beauty and wisdom, he entered the court to serve as an official, clean and just, and when there were difficulties, he would often seek advice from me, which in a way fulfilled my dream of holding an official position. Finally, Zheng ascends to the position of Prime Minister. With disciples spread across the world, people only know that our Shen family is capable and formidable, teaching children well, and have long forgotten the mediocre bunch in the Marquis mansion. I have been reborn, and if there is anything I can't bear to part with, it is only my Zheng with his radiant charm and moonlit grace. But good child, I am first myself, Shen Mingyao, only then am I your mother. In this life, I still want to live for myself and to live a different, brilliant life. So at my first visit to the residence, I said to my parents, since the clan has rules of rank and order among the elders and younger, I will follow the original plan. I will marry General Gu to repay kindness, and my sister will be betrothed to the Dingwa Duke's household as directed. I want to swap marriages with my sister. I, along with General Xiaoqi Jiu Yunjing, have had intersections with each other, in this life or the next. A year ago, I followed my master to Jiangnan to manage the floods. A flood surged with great force. Breaking the dikes, I pushed my master to the shore, but I myself fell into the water by accident just as Jiu Yunjin went south to raid the bandits. Upon seeing this danger, he personally jumped into the river to pull me ashore. Seeing that I was gasping for air, he passed breath to me with a kiss, and that saved my life. People surrounded and teased, saying that a man and a woman should not touch, and if General Gu does not marry me, I will be left with no one. The stern-faced military officer frowned. This is a life-saving act. How can I pressure the girl into marriage with this? Purity of heart reflects in every word and action. With this single sentence, I know Jiu Yunjing is a rare gentleman. I grinned openly and agreed, if there are men who would refuse to marry me for that, they're not worth much. I wouldn't look up to them anyway. He suddenly looked at me, his gaze trembled a little, and his brows gradually relaxed. Miss, your generosity will surely lead you to a smooth life. I copied his fist-clasping salute and responded playfully, the general is benevolent, kind, and sensible. Surely you can return safely in triumph. So after going home, I promised my parents to marry him, not entirely to repay a debt of gratitude. A gentleman is like jade, something I aspire to. Unfortunately, Xiao Yang's reckless act changed the lives of the four of us. I don't know if the outcome would have changed if my marriage in a previous life were to be with Jiu Yunjin, who died tragically in Jiangdong, but I know I wouldn't be as miserable as Yuna. Yuna is kind at heart. Even if she and Jiu Yunjin had no romantic bond, she helped him raise his younger sister well, and even brought her to the palace to serve as an official. But Yuna always preferred a large family living under one roof since childhood. So before turning 22 she stayed alone in the deserted general's mansion, naturally envious of the lively households of the noble families in our country. But I am not the same. Even if I am alone, I will steadfastly walk my own path. There are many goals in life to rely on, not limited to marriage alone, and since childhood I have been more capable of enduring loneliness than Yuna. In the female official examinations, the reason I rank ahead of her is also due to the Empress Dowager's high praise. The eldest daughter of the Shun family possesses a cliff-straddling pine temperament. In adversity she will surely stand firm against the wind. Such a loyal minister is rare and invaluable. Empress Dowager, I missed you in a previous life. In this life I will not disappoint the you have shown me. Now, Yuna and I are going to marry in quick succession, two of us in red robes, sisters hand in hand, finally obtaining the fulfillment we each desired. Before I left to marry, I warned Yuna that although the prince household is bustling with people, the relationships are complicated. How many noble families have fallen prey to internal scheming? One must not let their guard down, especially since I've heard the old prince is cultivating a path to immortality. Those alchemical pills have Killed many have you and I, sisters, not witnessed enough. If you can persuade, then persuade more, and if not, at least don't take them yourself. But in this life, Xiao Yang is marrying her, and he has promised a lifetime for the two of them as a pair, with a husband to protect and support. It should be easier. Your nods in acknowledgement and also advises me, big sister, how many return from campaigns since ancient times? Since you married a warrior, you should learn to let it go. If danger truly comes, keep yourself busy with official affairs in the palace, or accompany the young miss of the household to go out for a stroll to relax. Do not brood alone and add to your illness. In a previous life, you managed state affairs neatly, but as she was hailed in history and reached the age of retirement, she remembered the lovers she had missed in the past, and looked around to find no one by her side. In recalling the anxious memories, she ultimately died before me. So at this moment, the two of us have laid bare to each other every detour we have taken along the way. My eye sockets warmed. I patted Yuna's hand and then gently caressed her cheek. Good Yuna, may you and I, as sisters, have all your wishes come true and a smooth path ahead. I married into the general's estate as I wished. When the veil was lifted, a handsome face, as unyielding and unsmiling as ever, came into view. Jiyu Yunjing is in red. His face appears as jade under the crown auras. They should be drinking the wedding wine, but he grips the wine cup and sits beside me with a despondent arc of the brows. He says, Miss Shin, you should not have married me. My heart suddenly gives a jolt. Could it be that he was reborn as well? Could it be he and Yuna were once husband and wife in a past life? Now he adores her, and I have intruded once again. I am uneasy and ask him what he means. Guyujin explained, Miss, you probably saw it today when you entered the mansion. My parents are both dead, and only my 8-year-old sister is left. He clenched the wine cup, his brow knitted in a frown. Household chores are the most wearisome when unseen. I have been away on campaigns for years, knowing I bear little of the burden, yet there is no one at home to assist with things around the mansion. His lashes trembled slightly as he turned his head, meeting my eyes. I'm afraid my wife will suffer. Actually, Jiyu Yunjing has refused every time, whether in the previous life or this one, when visiting my home to discuss a betrothal in the previous life. When Xiao Yang married someone else and Ye came into a fit of anger and genuine gratitude for Jiyu Yunjing saving me, I forced myself to die to push for the marriage, and General Jiyu had no choice but to agree. And now, I gave him a gentle smile. My eyes bright. General, how would you know that I am not truly willing to marry you? A hint of confusion rose in Jiyu Yunjing's eyes, and he asked me, do Miss Shen really want to think it through? I spoke frankly. Without in-laws, there's less help to rely on, but also less scrutiny. Your younger sister, I promise, I will raise and support no matter what, as long as you don't stop me from entering the palace to take an official position. He waved his hand in a hurry, saying he wouldn't block it. I seized that big hand in one go, fingers intertwined. Jiyu Yunjing's palm bore rough calluses, hot as embers. His Adam's apple rolled upward, and his handsome face flushed red. Miss Shen, after finishing this cup of the wedding wine, you must call me madam, husband. I leaned close to Jiyu Yunjing and fed him the wine with my own hands. The cold and hard general, like iron, blushes and lowers his head before me. Madam, my hand slips into his clothing. Indeed a warrior, with rigid ribs and sinewy muscles. Just touching him feels strong. I was savoring it, when Jiyu Yunjing suddenly gripped my wrist to prevent me from exploring further. He suppressed a moment of chaotic infatuation in his eyes, regained some sanity, and spoke. Madam, I am a general who leads troops into battle. Life and death are uncertain. Perhaps one day I will return wrapped in horsehide. It is difficult to remarry after having a child. If you are afraid, I will not touch you. Gazing at those sincere and bright eyes, my heart warmed. I asked Jiyu Yunjing, how many soldiers are under your command, husband? He answered that there were tens of thousands of people. I asked again, have you ever seen the wives of these tens of thousands? After their husbands die in battle, do they not survive with their children? I sat up straight and watched him intently. Jiyu Yunjing, today is the day we are to be married. Let us speak clearly. I marry you not only with sincere feelings, but with careful consideration. If you also hold me in your heart, From now on you must not treat me the way you did tonight, look down on me without asking about me first. In the previous life, didn't I, after my husband died, alone raise the children and stride onto the broad road to prosperity? His eyes immediately filled with shame as he stood up. When I first met you, I already knew that the eldest daughter of the Shen family, Ming Yao, was a heroine among women, governing water and stabilizing the people, unafraid of rumors. I did not dare delay a woman's youth, never thought of marrying and having children, but after seeing you, I still developed inappropriate thoughts. Before me, the cold, hard general began to shed his invincible armor. So marrying you also has my selfishness. I have you in my heart, from beginning to end. You are the only one. He cupped his fists and saluted me. Tonight I wronged you, knowing that my wife is as tough as pine. I still viewed your heart with a petty man's mind. I waved my hand and smiled as I passed by. Very well, there are too many merits of mine. My husband can slowly discover them in the future. Jiyu Yunjin followed Zhong Yang, and I let him be pulled back. Onto the couch I knocked him down and embroidered a pair of mandarin ducks on the quilt. He clumsily embraced me, his eyes filled with the joy of having a priceless treasure. Before drawing the curtain, I leaned close to Jiyu Yunjing's ear and whispered softly, "Husband, I like vigor." We wrestled all night, both of us exhausted but satisfied, sleeping until well past noon before we woke. Not having to get up early to greet my in-laws with tea is really convenient, but I still woke Jiyu Yunjing with a kiss. On the first day of our wedding, I must have lunch with my little sister. The younger sister is named Lianxin. Although both parents are dead, she is raised clean and pretty, with a plump, jade-like appearance, clearly showing Jiyu Yunjing's care. But from the first moment I met her, I felt that Lianxin treated me with a shy, appeasing timidity. She took the initiative to pour me tea, help me pick dishes, and even brought a plate of osmantha sticky rice cake. Lianxin's voice was as faint as a kitten, and in her pair of almond-shaped eyes were full of caution. "Sister-in-law, this is a sweet cake I made by hand. I hope you like it." I glanced at Jiyu Yunjing. He probably sensed Lianxin's fear as well, and was in a bit of a dilemma. He tried to smooth things over. "Whatever sister-in-law likes to eat, brother will make it from now on. The kitchen has an open flame, easy to get hurt. Lianxin, don't go there again." "Okay." Lianxin did not dare to answer. Obediently gazing at me, I took her sweet cake and asked, "So delicate? It must have taken quite a few hours. When did you wake up to make it, little sister?" Lianxin scratched her head and honestly replied, "Lianxin doesn't know the time either. I just remember it was still dark then. The nurse said I should finish it early and wait for the madam to arrive, to avoid breaking proprieties." "Frigid spring, you waited here for a whole morning." Seeing Lianxin nod, my face darkened, and I gently set the pastry on the edge of the table. The room fell utterly silent, and I coldly scanned the maidservants and nannies seated below. He suddenly smiled and said, "I don't know who the nursemaid is, so capable at managing people and affairs." Seeing me praise myself, thinking there would be a reward, a wife-in-waiting dressed in gold and silver stepped forward to bow to me, with a face full of flattery. "Madam, it is the old servant." Being a wet nurse, she hoped to guide Lianxin, and only then would Jiyu Yunjing treat her so warmly. I quietly followed with a question. "I've noticed that Lianxin is so perceptive and observant, with impeccable manners and propriety, and I suppose there must be a master's guidance behind it, but I don't know what grandmother has taught you. You can make an 8-year-old girl bow so obediently. It's even more formidable than the family etiquette of our noble household." The wet nurse, thinking she had earned my favor, opened her mouth and spoke plainly. "I told Miss Tu that your older brother has been away campaigning for years. And now with the new wife entering the household, she will be the one to oversee the entire manor from now on. If Miss wishes to have a place here and not be kicked out for overstepping, she must start flattering the eldest sister-in-law from today. Otherwise, in the future she might be betrothed to an old widower." The wet nurse kept going too far, and even Jiyu Yunjing, who wasn't good at domestic chores, could sense something was off. He frowned and said, "The wet nurse shouldn't be teaching Lianxin these things." The wet nurse, seeing me tilting my chin and drinking tea leisurely, became even more uncensored. "When the general leaves, It will be for months. Who knows the rules inside the inner chambers? I replied, asking. Please Nanny inform me. Who now sets the rules of the inner residence of the general's mansion? She hurriedly nodded and bowed. Of course, madam, of course. She also reached to toy with Lianxin's arm. Second miss, quickly kneel and kowtow, say you will. Listen to your sister-in-law to lead from now on. I clenched the nanny's wrist, pushed her back, and threw her to the ground brutally. I gathered Lianxin into my arms and gently stroked her trembling shoulders, softly comforting her. I said, Lianxin, don't be afraid. This is my home, and also your home. No one can drive you away, and no one can force you to marry someone you don't like. Sister-in-law cannot, and your brother cannot either. Lianxin looked at me intently. The originally frightened, bloodshot eye sockets gradually dried of tears. Only then did the nanny understand my underlying meaning, realizing that my previous words and actions were intended to lift her high, only to see her fall from that height in my past life, within the Duke's mansion. From the stepmother to the legitimate daughter, from the maid to the dowager, there were people more scheming than she was. I fought to block the invading army and to cover with earth against the flood, discovering that the most effective method was this tactic of flattering and then killing. The nurse hurriedly flattered and begged for mercy, saying she had done wrong and shouldn't bully the second miss. I looked at Jiyu Yunjing and informed him, husband, since I am now the mistress of the inner residence, once I see any gaps, I shall rectify them clearly and properly. Naturally, Jiyu Yunjin understood that I was thinking of Lianxin's well-being, and I raised an eyebrow with a quiet smile, letting me take charge. I spoke out. Encouraging an 8-year-old to suffer and toil is not only unreasonable but also ruthless. Nurse, for the sake of your upbringing of a family, I will not impose the family law. I will grant you travel expenses and immediately have you leave the residence. She opened her mouth to plead and argue, saying that her entire clan had been stuck in the general's mansion, and if they went out they would probably not survive. I nodded slowly, almost forgot. You old servants are the ones who love to rely on a little bit of grace to bring in wives and children to idle away. Where is the butler? Today I will drive the nurse's whole family out of the residence, and if there is any trouble, I will severely beat their boards. I kept a close watch on the wet nurse, scared her into not daring to utter another sound. Nurse, know your place and stop while you're ahead. We both have faces to protect. If I lose my temper, what should be sold will be sold, what should be handed to the authorities will be handed over. I, Shen Mingyao, have long been infamous. Those who bite off more than they can chew are welcome to try me. As a lesson to deter others, the general's residence immediately became much quieter. The pastries that Lianxin made by hand that day, we 3 finished them all in one go. The next day I dragged Jiyu Yunjin out early and made the red bean glutinous rice dumplings that Lianxin loves the most. After she woke up, I personally held it to her and fed her with pleasure. In the previous life, I treated Zheng'e the same way. Whenever they were wronged in any matter, I would immediately compensate them in the same matter. In this way, whenever Lianxin later saw Osmanthus rice cake, she would only see it as a pastry, and it would not bring back her childhood heartbreak. Children are easy to lull, it just takes a little care from adults. Seeing that I am sincerely kind to her, Lily, Lotus Heart, becomes increasingly lively in front of me. Ying'e is 4 years younger than me. When I was in my teens, there was a period when my parents were very busy, so I took care of her. That year I personally braided flower garlands for Yuna, tied up a swing, accompanied her in painting and playing the piano, and secretly slipped out of the palace to watch shadow puppetry. Now, I also treat Lianxin the same way. On a clear early summer afternoon, azaleas and crabapple blossoms are in full bloom. In front of a sea of pink water flowers, Lianxin crawls onto my back and pins a full head of flowers in my hair. Laughter crosses the vermilion walls. I turn around for a moment and see Jiyu Yunjing standing under the gallery. He fixed his gaze on us, unwilling to blink. In a blue-green robe, red-eyed, he turned his back, cleared his throat, suppressing the tears when he looked back again. What he left for me and Lianxin was always a gentle smile. When the moon was high in the middle of the sky, after warmth, Jiyu Yunjing buried his face in the crook of my neck. He spoke low. I'm 10 years older than my sister. and have been the darling and pampered child for over a decade. But since Lianxin started remembering things, there's only me, her oldest brother, who is seldom home and often far away. Mingyao, I know she is actually my sister and shouldn't be entrusted to you, but these days I've watched you all live together and laugh. You treat her as you would your own sister, and I can hardly express how warm that makes my heart. Mingyao, I thought people must live together for decades before they could say they would not part and would not abandon each other, yet we became a family in less than 100 days, and I already can't live without you. I teased him. General Gu, you've always been taciturn and aloof, where did you learn such love talk? I patted his shoulder gently and spoke softly to comfort him. Then I can't be without you either. Okay. Gu Yunjing shook his head slowly. Mingyao, you are such a virtuous and refined person. No matter who you marry, you will live a good life. I'm different. If I leave you, it will be hard for me to have such a good home again. I nod in agreement, answering in the affirmative time and again. Gu Yunjing's greatest merit is his keen eyes and bright mind. He can see through worldly affairs, know when to cherish and when to cut off. So in the height of summer, an imperial order urgently summoned him to lead the army to campaign, and I truly felt a bit reluctant, even though I know that Gu Yunjing will encounter trouble only in the midsummer of next year. I still feel a little worried. I stayed up all night with Lianxin making a knee brace, and handed it to Gu Yunjing, who was mounted on a tall horse. My voice trembled more than I expected. Wife, please take care, don't get hurt again. There are several old scars on his body, and every time I touch them, my breath catches. Lianxin has cried herself into a tearful person. Gu Yunjing bent down, gently brushing away his sister's tears, then raised his hand to stroke my cheek. He was used to being the strongest in the family, pulling out a comforting smile. Mistress, sister, wait for me to come home. Only I noticed that when Gu Yunjing stood up and looked ahead, the corners of his eyes were already red. He clenched his teeth, mounted his horse, and merged into the millions of silhouettes marching far from home. Who are they to be someone's husband, whose child? Defending the country is but a 4-character phrase, yet within these 4 characters lie the many loyal souls buried since ancient times. Gu Yunjing has gone to battle. I cannot dwell in sorrow and longing every day. In order for Lianxin to cheer up as soon as possible, I took her with me to report to the Empress Dowager. As expected, the little girl, who had been crying for her elder brother, sharpened her senses the moment she stepped into the towering imperial palace, and her eyes widened in astonishment. We knelt to the Empress together, and heard her laugh. No wonder it's you, Shun. Mingyao, newly married, your husband went on campaign yesterday, and today you're already on duty. Truly a stubborn pine on a sheer cliff. After a brief warm greeting, I immediately sat at my desk and began handling my official duties. The Empress's library houses thousands of books, and Lianxin is the kind who loves reading. She plunges in herself, occasionally asking me for help with questions, which then requires no effort at all, because I had already been in Jiangnan to quell floods before the imperial examination. What the Empress arranged for me was water management in my previous life. After hearing that Gu Yunjing died in battle, I once asked Yuna to copy a military report for me to read. His death wasn't due to poor combat skill. The military report stated that one reason was that the relief army arrived too late, and by the time they reached, there was no chance to turn the tide. Secondly, because Jiangdong has abundant water and a complex network of waterways. During midsummer, when floods occur, many soldiers and horses are wasted against the floods for nothing. After the pain, I opened Jiangdong's waterway map and studied it with my whole heart and soul. In this life, the relief troops could be commanded by the Empress Dowager issuing an early decree regarding the problem of Jiangdong's flood disaster. Gu Yunjing, I will reform your fate for you. After I finished organizing the theoretical part, I requested that the Empress send me to Jiangdong to manage the floods. I expected to be away from the capital for more than 4 months, so I wanted to go back home and see my parents. As soon as I stepped inside the house, I saw Yuna hurrying over, tears welling in her eyes as she grabbed my hand. Sister, eldest sister really is heartless. You're going far away, and you didn't tell me about it. How is it? Once you married, do we not have any sisterly feelings between us? I reached out and took her hand. smiling softly. I plan to come home for lunch. Then go to the Duke's residence this afternoon to hand in our visiting card. Who knew you would run over on your own? Yuna, both angry and amused, hooked her arm around mine and walked inward. Why yes, it's all my fault. I've loved clinging to my elder sister since childhood. I fear I won't be able to shake that in this life. In the previous life, even when she and Xiao Yang fought bitterly, they never cut off contact with me. When she sent them from the rear residence, I would conveniently distract Xiao Yang and meet her alone. In this life, we take the same approach as before. Whenever we meet, we always avoid that troublemaker. The two of us walked warmly into the main hall. My father and mother had waited for a long time and came forward to exchange pleasantries with me. I was happy. But when I saw the familiar figure standing in front of the rear wall, my smile froze. This was the first time I saw Xiao Yang after our marriage. On the day of the homecoming, I deliberately avoided Xiao Yang after inquiring that they had gone in the morning. I then brought Jiu Yunjing back in the afternoon. I thought Yuna would come home alone to see me today, but I didn't expect she would bring him along. Although the times have changed, there is no way for Xiao Yang and me to wipe away our grievances with a single smile. She opened her mouth and choked out, a senior sister, a delicate young lady from a secluded residence, venturing alone into Jiangdong. I'm afraid I'll disappoint Her Majesty the Empress. I snorted coldly and met him head-on. Brother-in-law may not know this. Before participating in the female official assessment, I had already repeatedly gone to Jiangnan to govern floods. The policy reports I wrote were all included in the Taishua lectures. If we're talking about flood control, there are at most 3 ministers and generals of the current dynasty who can compare with me. Big sister truly has no idea how high the sky is or how deep the earth goes. My brother-in-law is truly blind to people and unable to recognize character. Yuna hurriedly came to smooth things over. Originally, it was for the whole family to dine together, but when they saw the two of us had argued to the skies, they split the seating by gender at the last moment, keeping me and Xiao Yang apart. Yuna sat beside me, and I asked her whether everything in the Duke's mansion would go smoothly. She snorted with a wry smile and mentioned the stubborn stepmother and the troublesome younger brothers and sisters. She said that the little goblin fortress mistress, Xiao Yang's heart settled, and they all blocked it. Then she urged the two of them, the couple, to cultivate together and eat immortal pills, but Xiao Yang was unable to tell right from wrong and spoke to the wicked. I sneered coldly. In a hurry, this doomed man, in another life, is still blind in eyes and heart. I asked Yuna how she managed it, and she said she threw away the immortality pill entirely, even barged into the Daoist temple, and threatened the old national duke using the imperial edict of marriage as a pretext. She said that if they wouldn't let her manage the household, she would storm to expose it before the emperor and empress, making every detail public. No one would have any face. I nodded to Yuna again and again. Well done, this is how to deal with them. Who do they think is a soft persimmon? But Yuna sighed softly, grievance in her voice. Because I govern the family with an iron fist. Brother Yang got angry with me for the first time. Elder sister, tell me, am I being too much? I only realized belatedly that in the previous life Lian Xin would follow Yuna to become a palace maid, treating her elder sister-in-law as a mother. Perhaps she too once, like me, punished the evil servants of the general's mansion. I am fine, and Yuna is fine as well. As for Xiao Yang, he is a fool. I spat. I still think you're being too concerned with face. Listen to me, Yuna, you must not spare that implement mother's family. You must strike hard and strike hard. Don't go too far, or they will go too far. As for Xiao Yang, I couldn't hold back my voice, and from behind the screen, on the other table, Xiao Yang seemed to turn his head and look over. I hurriedly covered my mouth and whispered, why bother about him? Good words rarely persuade a damned ghost. In a previous life, Xiao Yang died young at 35, and everyone thought it was a pity. Only I felt that his death came too late. Yuna forced a helpless smile. Big sister, how could you know? I have feelings for him. How could I abandon him? I was momentarily tongue-tied, ate a few pieces of meat, pressing down my melancholy, then said, this is the path you chose yourself. Whatever it becomes, you bear it yourself. I have only one piece of advice. If you really plan to fall out with Xiao Yang, At least leave yourself a backup. You love bustle so much, don't end up lonely and desolate. Yuna gazed at me steadily as warm wind swept in, carrying the fragrance of flowers. She suddenly asked me, "Big sister, you were also reborn, right?" My chopsticks paused for a moment, then I nodded firmly in reply. Yuna was silent for a long time. Finally, with her head lowered, she spoke to me in a hoarse voice. "Big sister, in this life, I will never drag you down again. You just keep moving upward. I won't let anyone hurt you again." I only learned later from my mother that Xiao Yang partnered with many colleagues to petition to impeach me and Jiu Yunjing. My mother doesn't understand why. Only I and Yuna know that he is holding a grudge from the past life for how I ruined his family and wiped them out, and he wants revenge, and all these dirty deeds were intercepted by Yuna. She even used her life as leverage for this, and in a moment of fear, she aborted a formed fetus. The girl said that when she went to check the news, Xiao Yang was scolding his younger half-siblings. It seemed his words also had something to do with his stepmother, Ju. What else could it be? Surely when he was making things difficult for Yuna, Ju and her children collaborated to bully her, and that is what caused Yuna great harm. These things were only known to me after I returned from the Jiangdong to quell the floods and saw the accomplishment. After listening to my mother at home, I went to the palace by order and received a promotion as a reward. I had not yet had time to change into the newly changed crimson and purple Chilean official robe when I hurriedly stepped into the Duke's residence and collapsed to Yi's bedside. Her face was deathly pale, and when she heard my voice, she weakly opened her eyes to look at me. "Big sister has safely returned. Big sister." She slowly stroked my cheek. "You're so tired you've withered." She wanted to cook for me herself. To make my body better with my favorite dishes, I hurried to hold her down and advised her to rest well. That would be the most reassuring to me. After coaxing Yuna to sleep, I stepped out of the room to settle the accounts one by one. In front of me stood Xiao Yang, with a haggard face and full of shame, standing in the chilly autumn rain. I charged forward and punched his face hard. He fell to the ground, spit out a mouthful of blood, and dared not raise his eyes to meet mine. "Xiao Yang, your actions in the previous life dragged me down, and in this life you harmed Yuna terribly. You really are a scourge." I bent over again, grabbed his collar, and swung several more punches. "You had a short life and no luck in your previous life. You deserve the same in this one. Yuna is reluctant to part with you, but I will do it." Dying a person in a big mansion is easy, especially since he had already taken many poisonous elixirs, but Xiao Yang gave up struggling, letting me beat him to death. A pair of eyes were rimmed with blood, and he stared blankly at Yuna's room door. Xiao Yang choked and said, "Don't worry, I will repay everything. In this life, I will not dirty your hands again." In the following month, news frequently came from the Duke's estate. Xiao Yang seized the power of the head of the family, married off his concubine sister-in-law, and sent his younger brothers to join the army and march onto the battlefield. He did the same thing as in the previous life, exactly as I did, but the death of the Zhu family was accelerated by anger. I suspect Xiao Yang took the decisive action himself. On the day Jiu Yunjing returned in triumph from the campaign, Yuna, whose body had just recovered, also paid a visit. She saw me, my husband, and my younger sister embracing and crying, and her eyes reddened as well. In the bedroom, Yuna said she was tired, so I gently drew her into my arms and lay with her, sharing a pillow. She leaned on my shoulder and cried quietly. After a long while she said to me, "Eldest sister, elder brother Yang asked me yesterday if I would be willing to raise children with him. If I agree, he will live a few more days, waiting to take care of me as I safely give birth to our offspring, then atone for his sins." I also remained silent for a long time before asking her what she planned to do. Yuna's tears flowed more violently, her hands covering her face as she wriggled in my arms in pain. She cried so hard that she was out of breath, coughing up blood barely. I hurried to call the physician, but Yuna grabbed my arm. "Not now, elder sister, let you listen to my answer first. I sat in the room, withered, all night yesterday, and he knelt outside the door all night. Before dawn, I went to the door and, in the end, dared not look at him. I answered him through the door. I don't want to, Yuna doesn't want to, so she hid from me today. She probably had an idea as well. When the first glow of the city lights appeared, in the midst of a sudden rain, the steward of the Dingwa Palace ran to report a death. It said that Xiao Yang hanged himself with a white silk cord at home. The imperial edict weds, not to return to his wife's family. After handling the household's mourning, Yuna went to the palace to request an edict and to guard the late emperor's tomb. From now on, the once bustling duke's residence is quiet, people have dispersed, the rain beating on pear blossoms, the doors shut tightly. My heart aches for her, to be always accompanied by the ancient lamp and the worn Buddha, a solitary life ahead. Yanga, however, smiles calmly and replies to me, older sister, in fact, in your past life, I observed the happenings at the duke's residence and had some doubts. Xie Yang, that man, may be only suitable for courtship and romance, not for a life together, but I am greedy, always thinking that if he treated you poorly, it must be because he doesn't love you. If I marry him, perhaps the husband and wife will live in harmony. It turns out I was wrong after all. She looked at me, setting aside all greed, anger, and resentment. Now, I also want to walk the path of my elder sister, to try and see if I can become a lone pine on a steep cliff. The two of us took the imperial examinations. I focused on flood control, while she specialized in cataloging ancient books. The later Yuna did not waste the rest of her life, but stayed in the quiet Tar Temple, revising a historical outline, passed down to future generations, and left a lasting reputation in the annals of history. As for my family, because I planned ahead, I repaired the waterways of Jiangdong, and even ahead of time requested dispatch of reinforcements, breaking the trap that would have doomed Jiyu Yunjin. It seemed as if fate itself had a plan. In the battle in Jiangdong, he saved his own life but was shot through the calf, never fully recovered, and from then on he could only limp. Misfortune is the place where fortune depends, fortune lies where misfortune hides. Jiyu Yunjing was therefore permitted to stay in the capital, supervising the three armies, and no longer needed to rush to the front lines. Although he is lame in one leg, he does not wallow in self-pity. In less than half a year, he will be able to use both hands and feet, create his own moves, and win over many valiant generals in the camp. He usually uses a cane, but he deliberately pretends to discard it in front of me and Lianxin. When I asked him why, Jiyu Yunjing lowered his head, always appearing inferior and pathetic in front of me, afraid of spoiling your fun. I hit him hard in the chest and spoke fiercely, underestimating people again. Upon hearing this, his eyes curved into a smile as he pounced into my arms. Good. Mingyao, I will never make the same mistake again in this life. Later, we naturally moved forward prosperously. I had a daughter, and I had hoped she would follow in the steps of Peiyang Lianxin and Zheng'e, becoming a civil servant, who knew that when she saw her father could still climb up the roof with one leg. She became obsessed with training in martial arts while practicing. She eventually entered the military camp like Jiyu Yunjing. At the age of just a dozen or so, she went to the front line to achieve merits, shocking the court and the world. I helplessly shake my head with a sigh, and Lianxin advises me, sister-in-law still has time to take care of the girl, now that the position of chancellor and prime minister is vacant. If you don't take action, I may contest it as well. Yes. In the previous life, when Jia officially became prime minister, he spoke plainly, saying that this honor was entirely due to my instruction. He said he dreamt even at night that if I could step out of the back court, I would deserve this position even more, to realize the aspirations in his heart and bring welfare to the people in this life. I will certainly do so. On the day I was bestowed the title of prime minister, I stood before the crimson gates of the Golden Palace, looking up at the clear sky. Zheng'e, the road you walked, I have walked once more. I have helped you realize your wishes. Outside the palace gates, husband, daughter, and younger sister are waiting for me to come home. The eyes they look at me with are always full of love. Holding Jiyu Yunjing's hand, he told me that Yuna also received an edict to return home today, to congratulate me on my official appointment as prime minister. I smiled softly and said, I love the dishes Yuna makes the most. It seems tonight we will have a blessed meal. The sunset lingered, the gorgeous rosy light spread across the wide avenue before us. I strode forward, never looking back. The past life was decent, and this life is also very good. End of the full text. The first story ends here. Don't go away, the next stories will be even more wonderful. When I was 10 years old, my mother left behind a particularly strange last wish. Qingwan, after mother left, you must go to that household at the end of Qingsha Lane to grind ink, and you must not stop for a day. I'm a lawful-born daughter of a general's household. Even if I'm not favored, I shouldn't have to work as a maid for others. But she kept flipping back to that one line, keep quiet and just do as you're told. I have hated her. After all, the legitimate eldest sister wears gold and silver, while I have never even owned a decent piece of clothing since childhood. She, on the contrary, even at death, found me a job at Yenmore Research Institution dealing with ink. I ground ink for 5 years for that old man in the Blue Stone Alley. Occasionally someone comes to him, whispers a few words, then leaves. He never explains who those people are, and I never ask. When I was 15, the main wife had me act as a green leaf for my legitimate sister and sent me together to participate in the prince's harem selection. On the day of the prince's harem selection, I finally understood my mother's deep intention back then. On the day of the prince's harem selection, I was awakened before dawn. I am the illegitimate daughter of the Jinan general's mansion. In this mansion, an illegitimate daughter is no better than an ordinary maid. When the carriage departed from the general's mansion, my legal mother, Lady Ju, held my hand and warned me, Qingwan, don't talk much once you reach the hall. You are a concubine-born daughter. Don't steal your sister's spotlight. My legitimate sister, Shun Mingzhu, sat in the first carriage. She wore shoe brocade, embroidered with golden phoenixes, and on her head was a jade and emerald phoenix hairpin. I wore clothes awarded by my rightful mother, plain in color, without a single flower. This is the purpose she sent me for. The illegitimate-born younger sister stands to the side, making the legitimate older sister appear more dignified and graceful. More than 300 girls knelt in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, all in a sea of black. When it was Shun Mingzhu's turn, she stepped forward gracefully and performed the standard palace etiquette. The emperor asked her what books she had read. Your Majesty, Admonitions for Women, Rules for Women, and the Book of Songs. The Empress Dowager nodded, the manner of a noble young lady. A few noble women nearby whispered, Miss Shun of the Shun family is truly outstanding. I've heard that the crown princess's position was hinted at by the Empress Dowager a long time ago. When Shun Mingzhu passed by me on her way down, there was a smile at the corner of her mouth. Qingwan, don't be nervous. If you can't answer, no one will blame you. I stayed silent. General Zhennan's concubine daughter, Lin Qingwan. The eunuch called my name. I walked to the center and knelt down. Lin Qingwan, what books have you read? The dozens of people in front answered with Lessons for Women, Code of Female Conduct, the Analects, and the Book of Songs. I opened my mouth and said, replying to Your Majesty, I have read Strategies for Governing the Nation, on Frontier Defense, and the Salt and Iron General Discussion. There was a brief moment of silence in the hall. The Empress Dowager frowned and asked, who told you to read these books? She herself reads it. Did you read them yourself? The Empress Dowager didn't trust him. Your legitimate sister hasn't read these. And you, a concubine-born daughter, where did you get these books from? Could you be talking nonsense? I can't answer. We can't say it's on some old farmer's shelf. Even if I say it, no one would believe it. Shun Mingzhu snorted softly from behind. The sound was not loud, but the hall was quiet. Many people heard it. The emperor glanced at her, then looked at me. Then I will ask you a few questions. The first one. Today's frontier defenses, to the north are the Xiongnu, to the west the Qiong. Which side do you think is the most urgent? I spoke slowly. The northern frontier is the most urgent. The Xiongnu lack salt, iron, and tea leaves. Raiding is a matter of survival. The emperor's eyes narrowed slightly. Second question. Last year's floods in the Yangtze River region, the river management funds were cut off. More than 300 people died. If you were the governor, what would you do? I thought about it. I heard the prototype of this problem at the old man's house. That day a man was kneeling in the yard, crying. The old man was painting and cursing him. I was beside him, grinding ink, listening in on most of it. My servant will do 3 things. First, provide disaster relief. Second, investigate and arrest those from whom silver was taken. Third, write a confidential memorial to the emperor. and submit the list together with the evidence. Aren't you afraid of offending people? Cowardice. But with more than 300 lives at stake, we have to do it anyway. The emperor fell silent for a while. The third question, what kind of person do you think a crown princess should be? The moment this question came up, there was a silence in the hall as if a pin could be heard. I caught a glimpse out of the corner of my eye of Shen Mingzhu. Her back was straight as a ramrod. I, your servant, think the crown princess should be someone who can stand beside the crown prince. Not someone who is good-looking or can bear children is considered to stand by your side. She could understand when the crown prince discussed state affairs, she could endure when the crown prince faced danger, and she could pull him back when he went astray. Such people are easy to find, not easy to find. Do you think you can do it? Everyone in the hall held their breath. I looked at the emperor. I don't know if I can do it, but I know that if I can't, I wouldn't be occupying that position. The crown prince suddenly spoke. Father, I think she answered well. The emperor did not speak to the crown prince and waved his hand. Step back. I bowed and retreated back into the ranks. Shen Mingzhu did not look at me, but I could see her clutching the handkerchief tightly. The palace selection continued. The dozens of people behind did not have anyone asked about policy topics. They were all asked a couple of routine questions and then passed. It was almost dusk at the end, and the eunuch presented the yellow list. Crown Princess Shen Mingzhu, side consort Lin Qingwan. A concubine is a side consort. The legitimate daughter is the main consort. Everyone felt it was reasonable, but Shen Mingzhu's final policy argument answer was stumbling and uneven, only able to pass because the Empress Dowager spoke up to smooth things over. If it weren't for the Empress Dowager's words, I don't know what the result would have been. On the way back to the mansion, Shen Mingzhu lifted the car curtain and looked at me. Qingwan, you really surprised me. Did you really read those books by yourself? Yes, I don't believe it. You, a concubine-born daughter, where would you have channels means? I remained silent. She sneered. Forget it. Anyway, you are a side consort. Remember, when you reach the Eastern Palace, I am the main, you are the assisting. Don't overstep. The carriage swayed as it returned to the general's residence. I returned to my own room and shut the door. A huge doubt suddenly welled up in my heart. Just who is that old country fellow? Really, the day I entered the palace, my legitimate mother came to send me for the first time in ages. She stood at the gate of the mansion, her eyes slightly red. Qingwan, when you reach the palace, take good care of the crown prince, and assist my sister well. If you and your sister are united, the general's residence can stand firm. I understood. She is telling me not to compete with Shen Mingzhu. The carriage entered the East Palace. Shen Mingzhu lived in the main courtyard, 5 large rooms, 4 nannies, and 6 maids. I only have one palace maid, named Qingluo. That night, the crown prince went to the main courtyard. The next morning, Qingluo came back from outside, looking unwell. Madam, there's a statement from the main courtyard, saying that the consort is the consort, and the rank and privileges must be handled according to the rules. In the next few days, the 4-dish 1-soup meal turned into 2-dish 1-soup. In winter, the charcoal fire was reduced from 10 jin a day to 5. I asked Qingluo to inquire, and the chief eunuch with a grin said, Your Highness, please forgive us. The Eastern Palace has large expenses, and the higher-ups want us to first tighten the main hall. The meaning of the superior, the meaning of Shen Mingzhu. I didn't cause a scene. Having been a concubine in the general's residence for so long, what cold treatment have I not seen? On the third night, the crown prince suddenly came to the side courtyard. He was in ordinary clothes, without a follower. Standing alone in the courtyard, he asked, Who taught you the answer to the 3 questions on the day of selecting the concubine? I thought for a moment that country old man had never seriously taught me before. He just loves talking to himself, and I listen. No one taught me, Your Majesty. I learned it myself from books. The crown prince was silent for a moment. I'll ask you one more question. The Northwest Army is in charge of the Northwest, and General Zhenshi commands troops with pride. The court cannot move his soldiers. What do you say should be done? I've heard this problem at the old man's house too. That day a young man came and talked with the old man for a long time. The old man only said one sentence, Cut off his rations and see how he feeds his troops. Cut off his rations. I said, The Crown Prince raised an eyebrow, stood up, and left. Arriving at the door, he suddenly looked back. I'll have the side courtyard's portion brought up tomorrow. The next day, my meals changed to 8 dishes and 1 soup, and the charcoal fire was ample. Shen Mingzhu found out on the same day. She came to the side courtyard to visit, but her face looked sour. Young sister, what a clever tactic. The Crown Prince came here once, and the honorarium has increased. Your sister is joking. It's the Crown Prince who is showing mercy. Mercy. Don't flaunt those schemes to seduce the Crown Prince. A lowly daughter, having read a few books, doesn't even know who she is. I said nothing in reply. Qingwan, I remind you, the Crown Princess is mine. No matter how you prance, you're only a concubine. After she left, Qingluo whispered, my lady, young madam's temper. Cut it out. I cut her off. What she said is right. I am a concubine, but I knew Shen Mingzhu was scared. What she fears is not me, but the matter of the Crown Prince coming to the side courtyard itself. The Crown Prince began to come to the side courtyard every 3 days, always comes at night. Sits for half an hour, asks a few strategy questions, then leaves. Don't touch me, don't flirt, I'm purely here to ask questions. But Shen Mingzhu doesn't think so. In the 4th month, she made a move. First she had me copy Buddhist sutras for her, saying it was to bless the Empress Dowager. I copied for 3 days and 3 nights, my hands swollen. She glanced at it. The characters are too hard. Copy it again. I did not speak up, and copied again. Finally, she complains. She casually mentions, in front of the Empress Dowager, the side consort's younger sister often discusses state affairs with the Crown Prince. I feel it is not proper etiquette. The Empress Dowager nods. Women should not interfere in politics. That afternoon, the Empress Dowager issues a decree. The side consort Lin Qingwan is to be confined to the side courtyard for 1 month. When the ban was issued, Qinglu cried in distress, Your Majesty, you should go to the Crown Prince. It won't help to go. The Empress Dowager's words, the Crown Prince cannot refute. I closed the door, let Qinglu fetch a stack of papers, and began writing commentary for the treatise on governing the world. In a month, I wrote 30,000 characters. On the day my period of house arrest ended, I sent the surrogate to Qingsha Alley. I don't know whether that old man will notice, but I penned a line of postscript. Sir, the student has thought for a long time about the pros and cons of the salt and iron monopoly. The 4th volume does not spell it out clearly. 3 days later, the Crown Prince arrived at the side courtyard. He held a letter in his hand. Someone gave it to you. There was only 1 sentence on the letter. You can't understand, because you haven't met a real salt iron merchant. Before he had time to think deeply, the Crown Prince spoke. Next month, I intend to go south to visit the salt merchants. Come with me to see the world. I was stunned for a moment. Could the Crown Prince have secretly read my letter? But I didn't dare to ask. On the trip to Jiangnan, the Crown Prince introduced me to 6 salt merchants, 3 local officials, and 2 retired old ministers. Whenever we arrived somewhere, he asked me, What do you think? I shared my view. He didn't praise me, nor did he rebuke me. He simply took notes in silence. After returning to Beijing, the Crown Prince submitted a memorial on the reforms of Jiangnan's salt administration. The emperor watched silently for a long time. Did you write this? I, your son, am the main author, with the concubine Lin Qingwan polishing it. Polishing? The emperor laughed. These wordings and sentences, how do I feel they look so familiar? The Crown Prince only took me to the south of the Yangtze River, and Shen Mingzhu's hatred toward me had reached its peak. She did something stupid that night. Qinglu rushed in a hurry. Your Majesty, something happened. A letter was sent from the main residence to the Empress Dowager's palace, claiming you had an affair with her outsider. My finger paused. What external man? You said when you were in Jiangnan you were with a salt merchant. Indiscreetly. Also said there was a letter as proof. I wasn't flustered because I knew it was fake. Every day I go to Jiangnan, the Crown Prince is by my side. How can I be unclear with the salt merchants? But Shen Mingzhu's brilliance lies in this. She doesn't tell me directly. She first makes the Empress discover a letter. The handwriting on the letter looks a lot like mine. The next morning, the Empress summoned me in the Cunning Palace. The Empress sat at the head seat. Shen Mingzhu stood to the side, a hint of pride in the corner of her eyes. The Empress threw that letter in front of me. Lin Qingwan, is this your handwriting? I picked up the letter and took a quick look. The handwriting indeed looks like mine. Horizontal strokes are even, verticals straight, the structure upright and proper, but there are a few flaws. The last stroke of my G never has a hook, while the G on this letter has a hook. My habit is to lift the last stroke of my Y upwards, but on this letter it is flat. This is the eye for detail I have honed over 5 years of ink studying. That old man once said, a character reflects the person. A single small habit can reveal who you are. Empress Dowager. This is not my handwriting. What evidence do you have? The Empress Dowager can compare any document I normally write to this. Half an hour later, the Buddhist scriptures I normally write, family letters, and draft policy reports were moved to the Kuan Ning Palace. Upon comparison, it was indeed as expected. The Empress's face sank, and she looked at Shen Mingzhu. Mingzhu, this letter was brought by someone you sent. How do you explain it? Shen Mingzhu's face turned white. I was also deceived by someone. By whom was I deceived? She could not speak it. From outside came the eunuch's sharp voice. The Emperor has arrived. Empress Dowager has arrived. The Empress Dowager's face turned ashen. I hate the harem using such despicable means the most. Mingzhu, you have disappointed me greatly. Shen Mingzhu fell to the ground, paralyzed. She turned her head to look at me, her eyes full of hatred. Lin Qingwan, you win. I've never compared myself to you. You haven't. You've written so much in the outpost wing. Isn't it because you want the Crown Prince to see it? You accompanied the Crown Prince to Jiangnan. Isn't it to replace me? Sister, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. If you could do it too, the Crown Prince wouldn't come to me. She could not utter a single word. Shen Mingzhu was deposed from the position of Crown Princess and reduced to a commoner, relocated to the Cold Palace. On the same day, the Crown Prince issued an edict to install me as the Crown Princess. On the day of the enthronement ceremony, I wore the Crown Princess's ceremonial dress and stood in front of the Hall of Supreme Harmony. The Crown Prince stood beside me and reached out to hold my hand. Are you nervous? After the ceremony, the Crown Prince took me to meet the Emperor and Empress. The Emperor sits on the dragon throne, his expression calm. Qingwan, you come over. I stepped forward. The Emperor suddenly laughed. That old thing actually hid you for 5 years. For all these years I asked him whether he had taken on students, and he said no. Then when I, as Crown Prince, chose a concubine, his research and ink maid came in. I froze. Who did His Majesty say it was? The Emperor looked at me. You've been grinding ink beside that old man for 5 years. Don't you know who he is? The Emperor looked at me and laughed. Jiyu Mingyuan, the Grand Preceptor of the first rank, Imperial Tutor, veteran of 3 dynasties, with students all over the world. 5 years ago he retired to his hometown, and no one knew where he lived. It turned out he had been hiding in Qingsha Alley, letting you grind ink for him for 5 years. Imperial Tutor too. Characters slammed into my head, buzzing. The Emperor's teacher, the Prince's teacher, half of the court's officials and generals are his students. In my mind, only one thought kept flipping over and over. The old bastard. Is he the Imperial Tutor? Why doesn't he tell me? The Emperor laughed even harder. That old creature has always liked to hide all his life. If he told you, would you still study ink honestly? When you flip through the books on his shelf, would you still think that's your own curiosity? I couldn't speak. The Emperor continued. When he resigned from the official position back then, he told me he wanted to go someplace no one would know him and stay there. I thought he went home to farm. But what happened? He deceived a girl in Greenstone Alley and had her grind ink for him for 5 years. Your Majesty, I was not deceived, not deceived. The Emperor cocked an eyebrow. Then who do you think he is? I opened my mouth, unable to speak. I thought he was just a grizzled old man who paints. I don't know anything. The Emperor put away his smile and glanced at me. Qingwan, that old guy never takes students. He taught the Crown Prince, but he never calls the Crown Prince student. He says the Crown Prince is an imperial son. He's simply fulfilling the duty of a minister. But he called you student. My eye sockets suddenly reddened. He had never called me student to my face. He called me girl, called me stupid girl, called me the one who doesn't block the light. But he wrote a letter to the Crown Prince, and the envelope bore the name presented to student Lin Qingwan. Go ahead, The emperor waved his hand. That old thing's body isn't very well. When you have time, go check on him. I kowtowed and stepped back. The crown prince is waiting for me outside the hall. You already knew, Your Highness. Sir mentioned you to me last year. He said, Your Highness, there is a maid in my old master's house who studies ink. Her wits are decent. Wits are decent. He has never praised me to my face, but behind my back he told the crown prince, her wits are decent. I bit my lip, not letting tears fall. I want to go see him. Go ahead, I will have someone prepare a carriage. When the carriage stopped at the entrance of the Blue Stone Alley, it was almost dark. I told Qing Luo to wait at the alley entrance and walked in alone. The Blue Stone Alley was still the same, narrow, dilapidated, with peeling wall plaster on both sides. At the very end, the wooden door's paint had all peeled off, exposing the grey-white wooden timbers. I pushed the door open. The crooked-neck jujube tree in the yard is still there. A layer of dust covers the stone table. It seems no one has sat there for a long time. The hall light is on. I walk over and stand at the doorway. The old man was still wearing that grey cloth long robe, standing in front of the painting bench, holding a brush in his hand. He had grown thinner, much thinner than the last time I saw him. The grey robe hung loosely on his body, empty and sparse. He looked up at me once. Are you here, sir? Why don't you tell me? I have told you. Will you still work quietly on your ink study? But, I've told you, when you're turning the books on my bookshelf, will you still think that's your own curiosity? I can't speak his right. If I knew he was the imperial tutor, I would get nervous when I was flipping his bookshelves. I would be afraid. I would think, is this old man testing me? I won't be like before, flipping through whatever I want. Not understanding something and after asking, still daring to argue with him for those 5 years. I really thought he was just an old, rotten man. That's why I dared. Your mother told me to watch over you, he said. She didn't tell me to teach you, didn't tell me to help you, didn't tell me to pave the way for you. She just told me to watch over you. The path you walked was chosen by you. The counsel you drafted was conceived by you. The title of crown princess you earned yourself. I gave you nothing. I only let you stay at my house for 5 years. He picked up the pen and continued to draw. He was still drawing that crooked-neck jujube tree, in a grey cloth long gown, white-haired with weathered hands. The calluses on his hands were exactly the same as when I first walked into this room 5 years ago. I knelt down and kowtowed 3 times. Sir, you are still my sir. He didn't look up, but I saw the hand holding the pen pause. Stand up, it's cold on the ground. Since returning from the Qingsha Alley, I began sending people to inquire about Jiyu Mingyuan. Not that I don't trust the emperor, I just want to know a little more. What I heard back is more than I expected. Jiyu Mingyuan, the top scholar at 17, entered the Hanlin at 20, and became the late emperor's lecturer at 25. Before the late emperor's death, he entrusted his assistants to aid the newly enthroned 10-year-old emperor. He served as the imperial tutor for 40 years, teaching 2 generations of emperors among the 6 ministries of the imperial court. 4 were his students, the governor of the 9 borders, 3 of whom he recommended, the cultured scholars of the Hanlin Academy. Upon seeing him, would bow as disciples. 5 years ago, he wrote to petition retirement. The emperor granted his request 3 times, and he declined 3 times. In the end, the emperor had no choice but to approve him. When asked where he would go, he said, find a quiet place to paint. Then I moved into Qingsha Alley. I ground ink in Qingsha Alley for 5 years. After knowing his identity, when I went to Qingsha Alley again, everything felt completely different. Before, I would push the door and enter, call out, sir, I'm here, and then start grinding ink. I stood at the door for a while, took a deep breath, and then dared to push the door open. The old man could tell. What are you doing? Going in and performing a ritual first. I was momentarily stunned, then laughed. 2 years later, the emperor passed away, the crown prince ascended the throne, and the era name Yongning. I became empress on the day of the coronation ceremony. I wore a phoenix robe, a phoenix crown, and stood beside the new emperor, receiving the bow of all officials. Among the crowd, I saw again the old man in the grey cloth long robe. He stood at the front of the officials, a grand preceptor of the first rank. He followed the hundreds of officials in bowing, all shouting long live. Together, The movements were proper and flawless, with no faults to pick, but I saw him smile once, very lightly. The corner of his mouth curved and then disappeared. It was as if he was saying, "Not bad. This girl didn't make me lose face." After becoming Empress Dowager, life became less with, "The matters of the former court are handled by the emperor. The matters of the harem have rules. What I mainly do is listen, think, and learn." Every day after the new emperor goes to court, he comes to the Cunning Palace to sit for a while. "Qingwan, you said about the defense arrangements of the northwest garrison towns. How about the version I revised? Your Majesty understands the situation. I want you to speak." "That is what I said. Your Majesty revised that version. Moving 30,000 cavalry from the middle route to the western route, it seems to strengthen the western defense, but the middle route is left empty. If the Xiongnu feints to the east and attacks the west, breaking through the middle route, the western cavalry will not be able to return in time." The new emperor was silent for a long time. "You are right, I'll change it back." Days passed like that. Occasionally I would go back to Greenstone Alley to see the gentleman. He is old, his hair is all white, the age spots on his hands are increasing, and the time he can devote to painting is getting shorter. He used to stand for 3 shifts at a time. Now he needs to rest after just 1 shift, but he was still painting. "Sir, please take a break. I can't rest. If I rest, I feel like I'm going to die." "Don't say that. Life and death matters. What is there that cannot be spoken of?" He put down the pen and looked at me. "Qingwan, after you became empress, what are you most afraid of?" I thought for a moment. "The thing I fear most is being told, 'She is not worthy.' Who's worthy then? I don't know, but I'm afraid that someday, others will discover I'm just a lucky concubine daughter, who happened to meet you, happened to meet the crown prince, happened to." "Meeting anyone is useless." He cut me off. "There are many people with good luck, but the only one who could answer those 3 questions on the throne is you." He seldom says this kind of thing after speaking. He felt awkward himself, picked up the teacup and took a sip. Frowning due to the scalding heat, I smiled. "In the 3rd year of Yongning, something happened in the northwest. General Zhenshi commanded troops and refused to comply with imperial orders. The new emperor sent 3 waves of people. All of them returned empty-handed. The first group was a eunuch delivering a decree, blocked at the camp gate, stood there for a day and night with no one paying attention. The second group was a Longzhong from the Ministry of War, went in to negotiate for 3 days, and was politely sent out, with no result whatsoever. The third group is the old superior of General Zhenshi. After going there, he didn't even enter the gate in the court. It blew up. The Hawks advocated sending troops to campaign, while the Doves advocated pacification and surrender. Both sides stuck to their own arguments, arguing for 3 days with no result. The new emperor arrived at the Kuan-Ning Palace. "Qingwan, what do you say we should do? Your Majesty already has an answer in your heart. Why ask your servant?" "My answer is to beat him. But I am afraid I will not win." "Your Majesty is not afraid you won't win. You are afraid that after winning, you won't be able to clean up the mess." He looked at me. "You are right. If we win, the military town in the northwest will need a reshuffle. If you can't do it well, it will be more chaotic than not fighting. So your Majesty needs someone who can calm the northwest." "Who?" "Another student of the master, Jiyu Changkong." The new emperor's eyes lit up. Jiyu Changkong is a young general he promoted after taking the throne from a family of soldiers, joined the army at 16, at 20 he could hold his own. More importantly, he has served in the army for 6 years. Knows how soldiers are trained and how battles are fought. There is another layer. He is also a student of Mr. Jiyu. He was sent to Mr. Gu's side at the age of 12 and studied there for 3 years. Mr. Jiyu said his mind is sharp enough, but his temperament is too impatient. Can he make it? The new emperor asked. A student taught by a teacher will not disappoint. Jiyu Changkong is dispatched to the northwest. Before leaving, he came to the Cunning Palace to bid farewell. Dressed in armor, he stood in the center of the hall, like a sword drawn from its sheath. "Your servant Jiyu Changkong, bowing to thank your Majesty for the favor of the Empress's recommendation." "Stand up. It wasn't I who recommended you. It was the master who recommended you." He stood up and looked at me. "Sir asks me to convey a message to you." "What message?" He said, "You have walked a better path than he expected." 1 year later, the Northwest Army's disciplinary measures were completed. Gu Changkong seized the military power from General of the Westgate, replaced the insubordinate officers, and retrieved the salaries owed to idle troops. The General of the Westgate was escorted to the capital and held in the Ministry of Justice's prison for 3 months before being sentenced to exile. Gu Changkong earned great and was granted a title of nobility. On the day we returned to the capital, the whole city lined the streets to welcome us. I stood on the city tower, watching the young man in armor ride into the city on horseback. He looked up at me, cupped his hands, and saluted. I nodded back at the cunning palace. I wrote a letter to my teacher. "Sir, Master Gu Changkong has returned. The people you taught are all quite promising." The 5th year of Yongning, Master Gu fell ill. When the news reached the palace, I was busy reviewing memorials. A eunuch rushed in, his face pale. "Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager is not well." The pen in my hand dropped to the floor. "What do you mean by not well?" The imperial physician said, "I'm afraid I won't last this month." I stood up and headed outside. Qing Luo chased after me. "Your lady, you haven't changed your clothes yet." "Don't bother changing." The carriage raced along. "I've been thinking in the carriage all the way. When was the last time I went to see him?" "Half a month ago." He said, "Mind your own business and stop coming here so often." I really didn't go. Why didn't I go? The Qing Stone Alley is still the same alley. I pushed the door open, and half the leaves of the crooked-neck jujube in the yard had fallen. A thick layer of dust had piled up on the stone table. There was a medicinal scent in the main room, very bitter, very strong. The old man lay on the bed, so thin that only a handful of bones remained. When he saw me come in, he frowned. "Who let you come here, sir? Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "Tell you what for? You're busy with court affairs of the and palace matters of the. When would you have time to pay attention to an old wreck like me?" "You're not a wreck of an old man. You're my husband." He didn't respond. I walked to the bed and crouched down. "What did the imperial physician say?" "The imperial physician says you should eat and drink as you should, master." "The imperial physician is right. At my age, I've lived enough." "You, Qing Wn." He suddenly called my name, not girl, but my name. He rarely called me by my name. I became quiet. "Come over here. When your mother left, I couldn't save her. I've regretted it for 20 years. Tears slipped down my face. "Before your mother married your father, she came to me. She said she was going to marry. I asked who she would marry, and she said General Shen Huayuan of Jinan. I said that man isn't suitable. He has a legitimate wife and a legitimate son, and you would become a concubine if you married him." She said she knew. I asked if you knew and still married. His voice began to tremble. She said, "Sir, I has never asked you for anything in my life. I only ask you one thing. If I have a daughter in the future, you help me watch over her." I promised her I couldn't watch her grow up, but I watched you grow up. "Qingwan, you are stronger than your mother. Wherever you go, she will never reach in her entire life. Sir, please don't speak. If you don't speak, there will be no chance." He lowered his hand and closed his eyes. "Qingwan," his voice became very soft, "your mother asked me to watch over you. I've watched for 10 years, and that's enough. From now on, you walk your own path." I knelt at the edge of his bed, crying until I couldn't speak. Mr. Gu passed away on the night 7 days later. When the eunuch came to report, I was copying plans for achieving peace in the Hall of Celestial Purity. The nib broke, and ink spilled all over the desk. "When did it happen?" "Last night at the hour of the rat." "Who was by your side?" "There was no one. He left by himself." I changed into plain clothes and went to Qingsha Lane. He lay on the bed, his expression tranquil, as if he were asleep. "Sir, the last lesson you taught me is parting by death." I covered it with a white cloth again. "He doesn't have many belongings, a few old clothes, a stack of paintings, and a letter. The letter is placed under the pillow, and the envelope is inscribed with Lin Qingwan, authorized by." I opened it. "Qingwan, your mother asked me back then whether Qingwan could reach the end." I said yes. She asked why. I said because you are tougher than she is. Your mother has a soft heart, so she has suffered too much in this life. You are not the same. When you should fight, you fight. When you should endure, you endure. When you should be ruthless, you are never soft-handed. In these 10 years, I have watched you go from a maid of Yang Yang to the mother of a nation. I can go see your mother. I will tell her your daughter is stronger than you. Jiu Mingyuan. Final words. The end of the full text. That's all for today's story. If you liked this video, please give me a like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, you can leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.